Hello, today we are going to learn about the cell life cycle. Okay, so the cell life cycle and its parts. So first, what is the cell life cycle? So it's the cycle of growth and asexual reproduction of the cell, consisting of interphase followed in actively dividing cells by prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Those last phases are part of mitosis, and I'm going to make that a separate video in the future. But the main part of the cell cycle, the majority of it is spent in the phase known as interphase. Okay, it is the resting phase between successive mitotic, that means mitosis divisions of the cell, or between the first and second divisions of meiosis, which is a different process, which I will also make a video for. So interphase, so most of the cell life cycle is interphase, and that can be broken up into three main parts. Gap 1, which is also known as G1, and in that phase the cell is just growing and preparing for DNA replication. Then in synthesis, or S phase, the only thing that's happening is the process of DNA replication. That whole process that we've discussed in the previous video, that is what is happening in synthesis, or S phase. Then gap 2 happens after that, which is basically the DNA has been replicated. We just have to do the final growth, preparations, and duplications of organelles before mitosis or meiosis, depending on the process, whether we're talking about non-sex cells or sex cells. So I'll say this now, mitosis is for the division of non-sex cells, while meiosis is the division of sex cells. But again, I'll make separate videos in the future for each of those. And then after mitosis or meiosis, depending on the situation, you have cytokinesis, which is just the final splitting of that one cell into two cells. And then this whole cycle of interphase, mitosis or meiosis, cytokinesis, that just starts again and again and again in the new cells. So, how do cells make sure this process essentially happens correctly? Okay, so in order to complete the cell life cycle, cells must follow and carry out specific instructions, which again are proteins that the original coding comes from DNA. So basically, proteins are carrying out these specific instructions. In eukaryotic cells, the cell life cycle is enacted by a combination of a protein and an enzyme. Cyclin proteins bind to cyclin-dependent kinases, or CDK enzymes. So basically, you have a protein and an enzyme, which is just a different kind of protein. And when they bind together, so next bullet point, different cyclin CDK combinations control different activities during different stages of the cell life cycle. So basically, when this cyclin protein and the CDK enzyme come together, whichever kind of cyclin or whichever kind of CDK enzyme, when they come together, they either are doing something or not doing something. They are either sending some kind of signal or not sending some kind of signal. And basically, when they combine together, they act as checkpoints in this whole cell life cycle to ensure that there are no errors in the process. Okay, so we can see in the image on the left some examples of checkpoints. So you have a G1 checkpoint, so you can see what will go on in there. You have an S or synthesis checkpoint, and you have a mitosis checkpoint that could potentially happen in G2 as well, like before mitosis. But again, it's not listing every single checkpoint. It's just an example of what checkpoints are. So basically, at each of those checkpoints, there's cyclin protein and a CDK enzyme coming together to say, yes, we are good to move forward into the next part of the cell life cycle, or no, we are not. So what happens if the checkpoint says, nope, something's wrong, we can't go forward? So at this point, it's better for the health of the entire organism to just get rid of the cell altogether. Basically, it's at a point of no return. Nothing can really be fixed, so you just have to destroy the cell. So the cell essentially self-destructing or terminating itself, that process is known as apoptosis. So definition, it is the death of cells which occurs as a normal and controlled part of an organism's growth or development. So apoptosis, destroying its own cells. That sounds like a really bad, scary thing, but again, it is actually keeping the whole organism healthier, because you don't want an unhealthy, poorly formed cell to keep growing and dividing. I'm going to make a video on what that is in the future. But again, apoptosis cells are greatly reduced in size and collapse, and it's good because it prevents unhealthy or improper cells from developing. Other situations in which it can be used or useful is in the development of fetus or embryo. So if we can look at the bottom right picture there, so when limbs are developing in humans or animals, and they're like spoon kind of limbs, like they're just discs at the end. So the only way we actually get digits or fingers or toes is when apoptosis is basically destroying parts of these spoon hands to actually make the divots going in and out, which will end up becoming fingers and toes. You can see that in that bottom right picture there. Also, in plant cells, because plants, they have a cell life cycle and they go through this whole process as well too. Apoptosis actually causes leaves to change color, so going from green to red to browns. That is also apoptosis. Thank you for watching. Please share and subscribe, and remember to spread kindness.